What's the top problem in your marriage right now?
Uh, what I put as wife's low libido. If I was to simplify it into 3 words, my initial answer is my wife's low libido.
Okay. And how long has that been a problem?
I would say about the last 2 years. Yeah, the last 2 years. If I dig into that, um, we've got 4 children. Our oldest is 7. Um, yeah, and it seems like the last couple of years, it's just been, I don't know, I'd say I'm batting less than 50%, meaning over half the time I'm initiating, it gets declined for, whether it's being tired, not in the mood, um, yeah, different reasons like that.
Okay. And what did you notice right before this drop off in libido came into your lives together? When things were last really good, what was life like? And then
Yeah,
right before the problem came in, what changed?
I would say, man, I think like the biggest thing that's changed has just been growing responsibilities, obligations with kids. I would say that we've never had less time for her. So, like, as obviously, it's common sense, right? As we've continued having more children, she's had less and less her time. And so, like, if I'm taking a honest view at it, it's probably like, well, it's a couple things. Like, we homeschool, right? So the kids are with her all day. She's nursing. Um, and at this particular point in time, we don't feel super called to conceive right away. Um, so it's just all day long, people are, you know, needing things from her. And so I think at the end of the day, it's like, here I am, essentially needing something from her. It sounds bad. It's not that way, but I could see how it comes off that way. And she's just like, dude, I need space. I've been nursed on. I've wiped butts. I've done all this stuff all day long. I need time. Right.
Yeah, makes sense. Women who are constantly being grabbed at by toddlers and babies all day, trying to get hold of their boobs and whatever, being
Yeah.
sick on them, throwing
Yeah.
food at them. By the end
Yeah.
of a long day like that, do you think they feel sexy?
Yeah. No, probably not. And the way you worded it too is like constantly being grabbed at. Like I think of like the stereotypical like kid pulling on mom's apron. My wife doesn't wear an apron, but like that's how I would sum it up.
Yeah, it can be stressful. And you got to remember that you are married to your wife, not to your kids. She's married to you, not to your kids. When people's families grow, what they tend to do is end up making the kids the priority. And
Hmm.
I can see why that happens because the purpose to marriage on a natural level is procreation, right? You get married to have sex and have kids. So it's so easy to think that they're the main point of it. But it's far more important for you two to actually prioritize each other, right? Put your wife above your kids. And there's a deep level to the protector role that every man has to play in his marriage that actually involves protecting your wife from your kids. It can sound so counterintuitive. Protect my wife from my kids.
Hmm.
But no, you actually have to do that. You have to ring fence that alone time sometimes, and sometimes ring fence the time just for the two of you. So that's being
Hmm.
prioritized because who's going to benefit from that really long term? Not just you and her, but also the kids, right?
Yeah. Yeah. When you say ring fence, talk me through that term.
So imagine that for the long term health of your marriage, you two need to have time to connect where she feels like a wife, not just a stressed out, busy mom who's covered in food and sick and nappies. And if you don't make time for that and put up boundaries around it, create a little fence that rings it off, saying this is
Hmm.
important, it's going to happen no matter what, then the demands of just daily commitments are slowly going to erode any of that time for connection that you two have. And it is a numbers game when it comes down to it. Over the weeks, months, years, decades, it's a numbers game of how
Hmm.
many minutes you're prioritizing you and her per week, or how many times you're giving her the chance to just ease off a bit and take her stress out of the red zone. Like you wouldn't run in the car engine in the red the whole time, right?
Right.
Bad for it,
Right.
wear it out. Same thing with her too. Chronic stress eventually stops women ovulating. It dampens the libido down, down, and down until the body just switches off and the interest in sex goes too.
Yeah.
So I would get her without you there, first of all, just writing out what her week is like, how much time she spends on each thing, what's most irritating for her, what does she find hardest to cope with, and then just pick out maybe the top three things that are causing the biggest difficulties and say, hey, how could I help with this? How could we reduce the burden this places on you? And your job as the man is to bring some of the structure and efficiency and order to the household. Look at almost like a machine where you have a look at all
Mm.
the different working parts of it.
Right.
What's the whole process like over the week for getting everything done? Where can you spot inefficiency and how can you help? Because she's probably too overwhelmed to think of it like that because she's in it. You need to look at it from above.
Yeah. So actually have her do this exercise. Hey, write down what are the th like talk me through what a typical week looks like through a typical day. What's the most stressful part? What's the biggest pain in your butt? And then
Right.
from there, figure out a solutions of how I can take a couple of those off
Yeah.
her plate.
And I want to see it 24/7. Like you need to know what it's like at nighttime too. Because maybe you're asleep. Because most guys don't
Yeah.
wake up to a baby's cry like a woman
Right.
does. And
Right.
that's not your fault. That's because we actually hear sounds in a different way from what women do. Like they're more attuned to the noise of a baby's whimpering than men are. There's
Right.
all kinds of reasons for that that make total sense. But she's probably waking up more than you in the night and getting less sleep than you imagine. So you need to think about 24/7, not just from when she wakes up to go to sleep, but over the night too. And
Mm.
it's going to be the things that happen day after day after day. Those irritants that might seem small things when they're isolated, but when they build up and accumulate, that's what's really going to be grinding her down. So find out what those are.
Yeah, that's good advice. Um, yeah, I was gonna ask you, like, I know I initially said like low, no, and I think the more I'm thinking about it, it's like the probably the issue is like it's not in the moment when I make the request, it's like everything that's happened that day that leads up to that, right? And so if I haven't taken care of the things that I need to take care of leading up to that moment, like of course it's going to be no, right?
So sex starts outside the bedroom. The foreplay starts outside the bedroom with how you're making her feel around you. Whereas guys can get turned on more like a light switch, just straight on off, just
Right.
like seeing your wife naked, you're ready to go. With a woman, think of it more like a dimmer switch, so slow build. And your job is to start turning that dimmer switch, like even the day before, 2 days before, and just keep ramping it up slowly. Actually, create some desire. I mean, strictly speaking, you're both Catholic, right?
Both Catholic.
Okay. So, strictly speaking, even if she's not feeling in the mood, she should be, at least according to church teaching, granting any reasonable request to
Mhm.
satisfy the marital debt, which is what she owes you in justice, because that's what
Right.
marriage is about. However, you don't just want her to be doing it out of duty. You want her to actually
Right.
desire you, really, and fully be there present in the moment. So that actually involves, sounds strange, but turning her off before she really feels turned on. You need to turn off busy, anxious, overstressed mum mode with a million and one things on her mind from the day that's just been and the day coming up. So, this 24/7 time blocking exercise we're talking about, it gets some of that vague, shapeless anxiety of just feeling overwhelmed with lots to do out of her mind onto a piece of paper so it's clear and you can actually help her sort through it and really pick apart, almost like sniper shots, the things that are the biggest problems and protect her from them. And then, look, in place of that anxiety and stress, you can start to inject a bit more fun and flirtiness into her day to day routine, change the way she feels about herself first, right? Get her back to feeling a bit more sexy and carefree. And then that's going to spill over into the bedroom with all the benefits that you want.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. So you said it like turn her off before you attempt to turn her on.
Right.
It something I'd be curious for your advice on, Will, is like I've so understanding church teaching about like the the wife's role in like if it's a reasonable request, granting that.
And
Like
your role too, right? If some guys, if the
and
wife
yeah,
asks and they say no, it's also a problem.
yeah, okay. I've never had that problem. But yeah, it's
Yeah.
like my yeah, my role too. But I've almost been like in knowing that I've been like hesitant to like in the most those moments to bring it up because it's like what lamer not in critique me, right? But my thought is like what lamer way to be like kind of like pouty, like you're supposed to do this, right? So I've in an attempt to try to maintain attractiveness, I know that sounds silly. I haven't like played that card, though like I know it's valid. Um, I'd be curious, like, what's your advice for if and when it does get denied? Like,
Mm,
do I get up and do something else? Do I, you know, uh, because I think where I find myself is getting pouty,
yeah.
right? Or getting grumpy and just uh, I don't know really how to conduct myself.
Yeah. So you shouldn't whine and complain and get pouty about it. If you have like a mini tantrum after a long day of her having to deal with kids having tantrums, now she's got a husband having a tantrum and throwing his
Yeah,
toys out of the pram because he's not getting the sexual attention that he wants. So that's not the right route to take. I wouldn't recommend that. Ideally, you don't want it to get to the point where she has an actual objection, like, oh,
yeah,
I'm too tired. What you want to do is have the deep conversations about what marriage really means and the fact that you're one flesh and it's your way of expressing intimacy and connection. St. Thomas Aquinas also talks about how the marital act, so sex, is the channel via which grace is received in the sacrament of marriage. And the more you have sex, the more grace you receive. Okay? It's
Hmm.
a really profound theological point because the modern world has degraded sex so much that we just think of it as something which is like a cheap physical thrill. But actually, the Catholic teaching is that whenever you have sex, God is giving you to grace to strengthen your marriage, right? So more sex is better. And if you're having a tough time in your marriage with all the daily stresses and duties you're having to go through, more grace is only going to help. And most couples will actually pull back from sex during those tough times. And that just makes it worse. It becomes like a vicious
Yeah,
cycle because you're disconnecting in the bedroom as well as becoming distracted from each other outside the bedroom, too. So you want to talk about what sex really means as a kind of like super glue that holds you together and makes a really strong bond that no matter how big the family gets, no matter what you're going through, it's going to help keep you two together. Now, of course, that also means being open to life and trusting that God will give you the grace to be able to do those duties, no matter how difficult or overwhelming the thought of a bigger family might seem. She needs to have the confidence that, led by you, she can get through it because God
mm,
will help sustain the two of you. For many women, when they find motherhood stressful, one of the things that is contributing to that dampening of the libido is actually, guess what? I'm afraid to get pregnant.
yeah.
I'm already feeling like this is too much. What would one more kid do? What if I have twins? What if I have triplets? After this kid, is there going to be another and another? So some of it is going to be rooted in anxiety and fear, in addition to just feeling tired and stressed from day to day routines. That's a separate conversation to have, but you got to have it.
Well, honestly, like as you're talking out loud, it's almost like this light bulb moment of like, yeah, perhaps she is tired and stressed and, kids pulling on her apron all day long. But like also deeper rooted in that, perhaps it's exactly what you said, which is like, holy cow, this is what my situation is right now. Like, I'm not in a position to bring another life into the world and have more of this, right? And so until I can help take care of the nagging or the requests or, those top three biggest problems, like perhaps she doesn't even know that that's what she's experiencing is like, man, I can't bring another. But now
Yeah.
that I'm thinking out loud, that's probably part of it, right? And I think maybe one of the issues is like I'm a producer during the day, like in the working world. And so when I get home, often I fall into this state of like passiveness because it's like, okay, I've got all my productive energy out of my system. Now I'm gonna like now it's chill mode. Not that I'm like a Homer Simpson dad just watching TV. Like I'm still doing stuff, but like much more passive versus like, yeah, have not been intentional about like guiding, here's how our days looks like once dad gets home, or
Yeah.
here's how we're gonna run,
Yeah.
the evening.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah,
So
it's
here's a thought exercise for you, little experiment. Imagine we have a video camera set up watching the inside of your front door, and you come home from work, and we never see anything that goes on outside the household or your home office, whatever it is. We never see that. We only see the stuff that happens after your job is done. After you've done that exchange of services for money that helps provide for your family. That's it. Okay. Everything else is edited out. Now, that's what your wife sees from you. She's not there watching you the
yeah,
whole time when you're at work. She just sees you afterwards. Now, you got to think, what impression does that give her and your
mm,
kids? Okay. Now, you might feel that there's more to you than that. And I'm sure
yeah,
there is, but they don't see it. They see the
mm,
paycheck, but your real job actually starts after your paid work is over. Okay. You need to get into the mindset that your career is just to provide for your family.
yeah,
And the best part of you has to come out afterwards. It doesn't go to your colleagues. The main measure of your success as a man is what you're like as a husband, as a father. So get into the mindset that the money making is important. Sure, you got to provide on that level, but actually, it's just entry level. How are you providing stress relief for her? How are you providing guidance and leadership for her after your workday is done? How are you providing fun and connection, right? How are you protecting her from feeling like she's being beaten down by motherhood? These are all ways in which the protector and the provider role is actually far more important, right? And important on a deeper level
yeah,
than just what goes into the bank account. I'm
hmm
not saying that the bank account stuff doesn't matter. Obviously, it does. We have to work hard to provide a modest level of material comfort for our families. We have bodies, we need food, clothes, bills, a house, etc. But that can't be the main thing, right?
right, yeah. Um, that's interesting. Knowing that, like, yeah, I do have these good qualities that like I'm exercising throughout the day, leadership, guidance, speaking up, etc. But like understanding also my wife and my kids don't see that. Um, I think like if someone objectively just looked at the way in which I was living, they'd be like, oh yeah, like he's a good dad. Like he's kind to his wife, but like I'm not necessarily like proposing ideas for the evening. I'm not, hey, this guy's kind of like at the whim of his kids' requests or, you know, um, I think maybe what I'm lacking is like order and structure in the household
Okay.
uh, once I get home.
Right. Now, you set the tone because you're the head of the household.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a proverb which says that a fish rots from the head down. It's so important to think about. It happens with companies and organizations, right? When they've
Yeah.
got a bad leader, then eventually the rest of the structure in the company reflects what his main faults are. Like
Mm-hmm.
if you've got a CEO who doesn't really care about the company much, has lost his passion for whatever the mission is, slowly that tone's going to trickle down to everyone else too. So if you're saying that you lack order and structure, then your wife's going to mirror you. She's going to
Yeah.
feel that the household as a whole lacks order and structure too. And that isn't a sexy feeling for a
Yeah.
wife or a mother. It's a frightening feeling because things become intimidating and all the demands become overwhelming and very insistent, right? And pressing on her the whole time, no escape. It's not her role to provide order and structure.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
your role to do that.
That's me.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and I think probably it starts with like this perspective shift of like, dude, my job is to provide a means for my family, right? My primary job is to love my wife, it's to get my kids to heaven, right? And like my 8 to 5 funds for that to happen. Um, and giving that at home my first fruits versus my leftovers, my scraps. Like
Right.
all things that like, yeah, I know. Um, but like stuff that I also just need to put into practice. I think
Yeah.
just, you go on autopilot, you understand, yeah, of course, like, yeah, that's my primary role and responsibility as a husband and as a parent. I think I can just, yeah, fall into the routine of life of just like accepting kind of the standard. Um, no, that's good.
None of this stuff is complicated. It's all
Right.
simple and hard. And it's stuff that when people are reminded of it, they think, oh, yeah, I know that. I already knew that. But the way we are as fallen human beings who are weakened in our willpower and in our intellect as well, we tend to forget stuff or not focus on it with sufficient clarity. And we also don't do what we know we should be doing. And you have to be really vigilant against that trait in yourself. So you need frequent remindings of what you're supposed to be doing. And think about a conversation you could have with your wife about how things could be when you first get home from work. You know, that first hour or two when you walk in the door. Like,
Mm.
here's a suggestion for you that I think would have high impact. You take the kids for an hour and play with them, or read them a storybook or something, or take them out of the house and go for a walk in the park. And then she can either listen to some music, have a nap, have a bath, get a workout in, something like that.
Yeah.
Just get some space for herself and de stress a bit. And then, when it's time for you two to connect together in the evenings after the kids have gone to bed, and you might want to
Hmm.
bring bedtime a bit earlier in the day and be a bit firmer around that boundary, then you got to think in this precious time with my wife, day to day, because a lot of my day has been given over to my work hours. What am I
Hmm.
really building here? What kind of
Yeah.
connection am I going to forge? Because I haven't got many hours in the day left in the evening when I get home. Some of it goes to the kids. Most of my day has gone to work. So I really need to prioritize this window of time with her. What kind of things can we do to build connection in different ways that's going to speak the kind of language that she communicates best with me in terms of? So maybe you want to read her a book some nights. She can just sit, rest her head on your chest, and you can read a book she's going to enjoy. Talk about the characters with her. Okay, that's going to create some really beautiful memories for the two of you. Maybe another time it might be candlelit dinner. Another time it might be get a babysitter and take her out somewhere
Yeah.
nice, right? Slip on a dress she wouldn't normally wear. Just get
Mm.
her feeling different from how she normally does day to day.
Yeah.
Inject a bit more fun and be the provider in that way. And these are small things, but they have massive impact over the long term, right? A guy who never does any of that stuff at all eventually is going to experience his wife having a lot of buildup of resentment and bitterness and loss because all
Mm.
those nice memories they could have built together, that bond they could have strengthened, has been neglected. And when a woman feels that, she starts to feel like she's not cherished, like the man
Yeah.
hasn't really made her a priority, doesn't want to share those experiences because he doesn't value them or ultimately value her. So that's why it matters.
Yeah. I think the trap that I've fallen into, that we've fallen into, is just like, like we're sprinting to stay on top of it. And like once we get the kids down, it's like, and I think the risk is like, hey, I need just 30 minutes, hour to watch YouTube to just unplug and veg out. But like what an opportunity it would be to be like, hey, we can still veg out, but like let's put our phones aside, and like me coming up with an idea such like what you said, like reading a book, or maybe like we're going to talk, like I can without telling her. I can come prepared for like, hey, I want to ask her about this and this, or this would be a fun conversation to bring up to her. Because like part of this, Will, is like, and I don't know if you can relate to this. I want to be able to pull this stuff. Not that I'm like keeping this a secret from her, but like I want to be able to naturally pull this off without being like, hey, I'm doing this program and here's what I think we should do. Like it, I want it to come off as organic, almost in a way that like, yeah, I'm still trying to like woo my wife. Like I want her to be like, man, this guy's like on top of this versus like, oh yeah, this is one of his like projects that he's doing.
Mm.
Um, like that's what's crossed my mind in like reading through what's been really interesting is like just being on the school page and like seeking different like advice, etc. Like I haven't even told her, not that I'm, secretive about it, but like I'm trying these things naturally, trying to make it like my own idea. And the funny thing is like that, like it works. It really does. Um, and like you see it on paper, it's not complex stuff, but it does require like energy and effort. But I think part of it is like I want her to think that these are like my ideas versus like, oh yeah, here is my husband doing this little project here.
Yeah, of
Um,
course.
does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. It's got to be a genuine connection that you're building with her rather than just a pet project that you're implementing based on a cookie cutter template you found online about how to be a good husband. Now, the way you
Yeah.
do that, yeah, go for it.
No, yeah. And like at the end of the day too, it's like I don't want this like I don't want sex out of like, okay, good boy, you're doing a good job. Like I want her to want it. In fact, like it'd be great if she initiated it and perhaps like I can, and I don't want her to initiate it all the time, but like I sometimes want her to like take that role.
Mm,
And like we've never had that. Like I can think of maybe the first year of marriage, like up until we had kids. Like I want her to like want it.
yeah.
And I think
Well,
she like probably I think she probably enjoys herself, but like I think if I wasn't initiating it, it wouldn't happen.
yeah,
Um, so all this to say is like it goes back to like, dude, the idea of like when we have sex, we are renewing our wedding vows. Like it's giving us grace and helping her understand, helping like me understand that is going to be so much more helpful than just like, yep, you're doing a good job. Here, I'll have sex with you because like you did a great job today.
yeah, exactly. And you don't want to come at this from a position of neediness. You want it to
Right.
be just another expression of your overflowing masculine energy that she can
Mhm.
actually tap into, right? She wants to be filled literally through the sexual encounter with
Mhm.
that masculinity that you have to offer. If when she's around you, she actually senses that you feel kind of passive, lethargic, and drained from work, and the energy that you're giving out is not actually making her feel sexy around you, she's not going to want to initiate sex, right?
Mhm.
The reason she
Mhm.
was initiating in your first year of marriage is because she was feeling sexy then. Whatever
Yeah.
it was that you guys were doing together, whether it was dates, joking, laughing, touching, flirting, something about that was actually you giving that vibe to her.
Yeah.
And she was responding to you. So the woman is going to mirror the man. At the moment, that's happening, but in a bad way. And you've had it in a good way before. So you have to get
Yeah.
back to that. This is one of those no brainer concepts that just goes right to the core of sexual dynamics. If she doesn't feel sexy around you, she's not going to be interested in sex, right? You have to work
Yeah.
on her mood first. And you do that in lots of subtle ways rather than getting out a book and quoting some passage about the marital debt from a theology manual to her. That's going to go over her head, right? Or just piss her off.
Yeah.
Instead, you got to think about turning the stress down, reconnecting so that you're slowly building that desire up. And you can do that because you've done it before. Even
Yeah.
little things like being a bit more jokey, teasing her, playing with her a bit
Yeah.
more, like longer
Yeah.
foreplay, send her some texts that get a bit of a cheeky laugh from her or make her blush. Things
Yeah.
like that. Make her feel how she did at the beginning again.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so good. the woman is mirroring the man, but in a bad way in this sense.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. To your point, like, what was I doing differently the first year of marriage? Like, I was, I was dating her. Like, it was just her and I. So we were doing a ton of spontaneous things, right? In like, understandably, we're probably not going to have necessarily like the spontaneity that we could have had pre-kids, but like, I can take care of a lot of things and create a lot more spontaneity than what I'm doing right now.
Yeah. Hey, what I would do, here's a bit of homework for you. Think of a place that you've been to with her in the past that was special, that she's going to associate with that more carefree, sexier period in your lives together. Now, don't
Hmm.
tell her, right? But
Yeah.
plan a surprise date to that place.
Mm.
She doesn't have to do anything, right? No organization hassle for her. You could even buy her an outfit or some underwear and say, hey, look, we're going somewhere. I want you to wear this. You need to be
Yeah.
ready by this time. You could even hire a fancy classic car or something, a convertible, and make it a fun, memorable experience. And then you take her there, and then you just give her a great time. And you can say that, recently you recognize that you've let work stress get the better of you or something to that effect. And that you haven't been feeling as connected to her as you want to be. And you want to change that. And then you could have some discussions that really start with just you asking her questions about, how she's feeling, or can she remember when it used to be like this, that, and that. And just sit and listen, right? And then let her talk. And then everything she tells you is going to be potentially useful information for you to actually act on to improve the situation. Then it's not you coming in with a program that she
Yeah.
feels is just like an experiment. It's actually you digging into her a bit more, into her mind, into her heart with questions and listening patiently without getting defensive, which is really going to build some trust and show that you care to give her your attention. And
Yeah.
then what you're actually doing is just taking her ideas and then running with them in your own way to get to somewhere you both want to get to. And what's not to like about that,
Yeah. Well, it's a much more natural way to bring up exactly what the problems are too.
right?
Yeah, no, that's really good. Um,
And it's a good time to do it. Start of 2025, you're just thinking about how you want the next year to go. And here are some changes you want to make. And then you can talk about that together,
mhm. No, I like that idea. And I guess taking ownership too and like scheduling the dates, like planning the dates. I think
mm,
something eye-opening for me, we're in a marriage group and it's called Teams of Our Lady. And you kind of go around and you talk about like highs and lows. And one of the husbands was talking about like the staycation that him and his wife took. And then afterwards, my wife was like, man, you like, and she didn't even do it in the way to like put me down, but she's like, oh, that'd be so, man, you like, you never plan the dates. And I was like, holy cow, you're right. Like, I don't.
right?
Um, it, and so I've said this a bunch of times. Um, but yeah, I think like wife's low libido, like, isn't wife's low libido. It's probably like husband being passive in the home. It's probably wife not wanting to get pregnant for what would that bring to wife's life down the road, right?
Hmm. Yep.
Um, and like as a Catholic, as a man, like I want more children. Um, and I want her to want to have more children. I don't want her to have want to because I would say like right now, if you polled us, she'd be like, no, we're good, right? We're practicing natural family planning, and I'd be okay just saying like, screw it, let's have more kids. Um, but I don't think she's not there. She's not there, and I don't think I'm allowing her to be there.
Right.
Um, so I like the idea of, it's a new year. I'll take ownership in scheduling a date, taking her back to maybe where we lived, like kind of that cool area, right when we got married, no kids, and just laying it out there the way you phrased it. I think it could be like a natural way to get at the things that maybe are bogging her down, and then
Hmm.
just setting up structure in my life to like continue to be spontaneous, set up dates, take ownership, hire the babysitter, all that stuff.
That's
Again,
it.
like all things that I know, but that like I just got to take action on. And I think the difference is like viewing my life at home as a husband, as a father, as my primary vocation, not, you know, what I
That's
do.
it.
Because if I have stuff in my 8 to 5 that I got to take care of, like, dude, I'm doing it. It's in Outlook. It's on the calendar. I'm getting that done. I don't operate the same way at home. It's
Mm.
like getting shit done as a husband, as a father has not been default. Um, so
And you need to
yeah,
figure out why that is. You got to figure out why that is because this is actually a question of your integrity. If you know there's stuff that matters and you understand it's important and you should be doing it, but you're not doing it, then that's a lack of integrity in you as a man because you're not actually living out what your values are. It's like a guy who says that he wants to get strong or he wants to get lean and he knows he should go to the gym and he even knows what he should do in the gym, the sets, the reps, whatever, but he's just not doing it, right? Something about him isn't aligned with what his goals really are. And you need to find that part of yourself and imagine it's like Gollum or something from Lord of the Rings. Yeah. And you just grab its little
yeah,
neck and you look it in the eyes and say, we don't need you, right? And you just snap that little neck, and then your marriage is going to flourish in the way that it never has before, right? There's something there that's stopping you from doing what the best part of you really wants. And
Mhm.
that part of you, this little golem creature, that's the thing that's turning your wife off, right? And you got to find it and figure out what it's afraid of, what its priorities are, because there's sure as hell not a strong connection between you and your wife or you excelling as a husband. It's got some other priority, and you need to actually dig down and find what that is. It will be something good, right? Otherwise, it would never have been attractive enough to really like catch the golem's gaze in the first place. So
yeah,
it will be something good. So have sympathy, right?
yeah,
Okay. But it's a good thing that's been put out of place. It's a good thing that's
yeah,
gone way higher up the scale of priorities than it should have gone. So you gotta stop it right from now.
yeah. I have a theory, like the way you're describing it right now, like I think and obviously I have to think more about it, but like if I was to take a stab at it, dude, I bet it would be like it's out of this sense of like happy wife, happy life. Hey, what do you want to do? Like, got home from work. What would you like to do? Versus like, hey, I got this set up. We're gonna babysitter's coming over. But I think it's probably rooted in this sense of like, as long as you're happy, I'm happy. So like, do you want to do this? We'll do that. Do you want to do this? We'll do that. But me ever proposing this idea. So I think if it's rooted in good, it's like it's this wanting to make like the day. It's not wanting to bring friction into the relationship. Um, but like at the expense of like teetering way too far in the end of like, dude, you gotta be a man and like propose ideas and plan versus just like, hey, as long as my wife's happy, because what we've seen is like it's been to her in my detriment.
Hmm.
Um, is
Yeah,
me not being the me not taking care of this stuff. And like all this being said, like it's not like I'm a total doofus idiot at home. It, like hanging out on my phone. Um, but like to be honest, it's yeah, she's probably planning the majority of the evenings, and that's probably why she doesn't feel so sexy by the time kids are put down.
right. Happy wife, happy life. In the end, as you found out, doesn't lead to either. You don't get a happy wife, and because of the weakening of the connection between the two of you, when you're not leading emotionally, providing the fun experiences, protecting her from the kids, bringing the order and structure into the home, because you're worried about adding friction by telling her, hey, this is what we're going to do, here's how it's going to be. You don't get a happy life either. So This is because the way that you're currently running things doesn't really fulfill you as a man or her as a woman. So that's why it's ultimately dissatisfying. Now, coming back into this, you got to understand that the way forward is going to involve probably some short term pain, right? Because you're changing some bad habits that have crept in. You have to start seeing yourself differently. So, an identity shift needs to happen so that you recognize it's your responsibility to be the protector and provider in all these ways. And that means challenging a part of yourself that has grown through your vices, through your bad habits. And it won't like giving up, right? It's going to fight back to begin with. And your wife, too, might not like to begin with you taking a bit more of an assertive role and exercising authority a bit more. Like, oh, hold on, why are you acting this way? Like you're telling me we're going to do it like this? Who do you think you are? There might be some initial pushback like that, and that's natural for a woman to do that because she's actually giving you what's called a shit test, where she's basically saying, "Do you really mean what you say this time?" Right? Or is this just another one of your ideas? Another thing you're going to say? You'll say one thing, do another. So expect there to be a little bit of pushback and challenge from her. And then what she's really wanting to see is that you mean it and you go through with it in a firm but loving way. For example, maybe she's going to pretend like she doesn't really want to go out on a date and the kids can have the babysitter and get into a nice dress and she can't be bothered. Okay. And if you say, oh, yeah, whatever, then, right, you fail. You failed the test. No, we're really doing this because I want to spend
Yeah.
time with you and it's going to be great. Let's go. Don't worry about the kids. I've handled it all. Get out the door, right? Laugh it off,
Yeah.
see it through. And then she's going to think, all right, he's serious. I kind of like
Yeah.
this. And that initial moodiness or kind of stroppiness is going to go away. And then it will
Mm.
fade. There'll be a great memory there. Next time will be easier. So some guys get afraid to make changes because they don't understand that things can at first get worse before they get better. And the
Yeah,
way
for
to get
sure.
over that is know that if you carry on like you are now on the current trajectory, it leads nowhere good. Okay. The disconnection gets worse and worse and worse. Whether it's 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20, more steps down this road you're currently on is taking you nowhere good.
Yeah. So you're saying with the shit test, it's like she'll more than likely push back almost as a unconsciously testing like, is this guy real? Like, is he really? And so there will be, but stay strong, stay to the plan, and eventually she'll come around to it. And then she'll
Right.
get into the mode of like, oh yeah, this is my husband. He's the man. He's assertive. I'm
Yeah.
on his plans. It's gonna
Right.
take me to a good place.
That's it. Your mic's gone a bit funny, by the way. You even sound a bit like Gollum now.
Yeah, boy, it's the Gollum inside of me manifesting.
Well, look, you got a good plan now. So I'd be keen to hear some updates about how this situation progresses. Most of the specific ideas you should base on what comes out of conversations with your wife, right? Like things that she wants to do that she's not doing enough of. Listen to what she has to say. Think about how you can integrate some of those ideas into your plans for the two of you. And look, as a minimum, I want you to think about a routine for when you finish your work day each day to give her a bit more space and let her unwind a bit and you can build a better bond with your kids. I also want you to think about having at least 90 minutes every single week that's in your calendar with the same seriousness as you put your work meetings into your calendar. 90 minutes of just undivided attention that you and your wife give each other. No phones, no TV, just face to face, hold hands or whatever, and just talking. Okay. 90 minutes per week. And you should mainly be asking questions. Hey, how was your week? How have you been feeling recently? She might say, oh, this was tough or that was tough. Okay, tell me more about that. Why was it tough? Like, what did you find difficult? Have you got that same thing coming up again next week? Is there any way I can help? And just find out a bit more about what's going on with her. This is just about prudence as a husband, right? You want to get as much information as you can about what's going on in your household so that you can make the best decisions. It's like a king or a general going into battle He needs to know what the terrain looks like, what enemy he's facing, how many men there are, what weapons they've got. All that needs to be part of his knowledge so he makes the best plan. It's the same for you too, because being a husband is kind of like being a leader in that sense. You got to think about what battles are coming up, right? How are you going to handle them? What the best tactics are? Which battles to pick when, so you win the war overall. And if you just get complacent, don't connect well with the people that you're in charge of, you're not going to have the best set of data available to be able to do that with.
Yeah, that's an awesome action plan. I will, yeah, I'll take action on it and report back
Okay,
how it goes.
awesome. Look, thanks for sharing your concerns. I hope our conversations help some other guys too. And I'm keen to hear how things improve over the next few months. So stay in touch.
All right, will do. Thank
All
you.
right, awesome. Take care. Bye.